What's happening, people? It is the Daily Betslip for Tuesday, June 14th. Ben Heisler, my guy Donnavan Smoot alongside. And just before we get started, because we do have plenty to dive into for the show, Donovan's had a very busy day. If you've been with us on our YouTube channel, you saw the final edition of the NHL postseason for the Stanley Cup final, rookie versus vet. The Rook, Donnavan Smoot, has a lead going into the final against our guy, Ian McMillan. So shout out to you for dominating in your Stanley Cup and NHL playoffs debut. We'll also go over the game of the night between the New York Mets and the Milwaukee Brewers. Got some look aheads towards the college football playoff that I'm excited to dive into with Donnavan a little bit later on today. And of course, our best bets and your best bets. If you want to weigh in, by the way, on our game of the night, head on over to Twitter. Poll is up there as well. But we also encourage you to hang out with us right here on our YouTube channel. Just go to YouTube, search BetSided, and the poll is right there for you. Donnavan, you and I were talking before we went on, and 60, final 2 minutes or so, we're getting ready to go. And I turn away to just check something out. And I just hear a, and I was like, oh, you all right, my guy? I heard somebody sigh. I was like, is it Joanna, our producer? Is it you? What happened? Are you okay? You good to go? I know it's been a long day. I just want to check in on you first and foremost.
Listen, I'm great. And I told you, it's like every once in a while you have to just breathe out of your nose. It's like a doctor's exam where they tell you to take a deep breath and do all that. And so I'll just breathe out my nose. And so I didn't know that my sigh was that loud to where it was at a concerning noise level. But everything's okay.
I just wanted to make sure. But you said that those are sometimes you just need a good deep breath, right? Sometimes it's just it just kind of helps you feel a little bit better for the day.
Yeah, and it's gonna sound stupid, but sometimes you just have to remind yourself how to breathe a little bit. And so I'll go and I'll take a nose breath just to remember how to do it, because you just get so caught up in just regular breathing. So you just have to be mindful of your body in the moment.
I hear you. If anything, one thing that I have learned over the course of being a parent in the now 3+ years or so of being a parent is that sometimes when my kids are really having a rough time, they can feel that deep breath. So if I pick up my oldest, who's now 3, if he's in the middle of some sort of a tantrum because he can't go to the froggy pool or something because it's raining, these are the things that happen with 3-year-olds. What I've discovered is if I pick him up and he can hear that deep, it's very calming. It just kind of helps settle him in. Same thing with my 15-month-old. If they can hear that heartbeat a little bit, they can feel it through the nose and then out through the mouth. All of a sudden, it's like a calming mechanism for them. So I feel like I've stumbled across something here, and I'm glad it can work for you too.
Yeah, everything's fine. No need to be concerned. I was just taking a deep breath, getting ready for the show, and ready to dive into these fantastic bets that we have today.
We got a lot on the plate today. You and I, of course, will have some WNBA plays, Major League Baseball for our best bets as well. We got a bunch of great submissions from our BetSided community. But where I think a lot of us might have to take a deep breath, and I wouldn't say a lot of us, but there might be a select few. Steph Curry, last night, Game 5 of the NBA Finals, the man on track to win the NBA Finals MVP, Donnavan, did something that he has not done in his entire future Hall of Fame career in the postseason. Donnavan, he went 126 games making a three-pointer, at least one, had 9 of those games where he made at least one three-pointer in the NBA playoffs. Game 5, 0, zip, nada, zilch. And somehow the Boston Celtics still found a way to lose by double digits in this game. So many different trends going up against each other, but boy, sometimes a lot of people just throw in an easy, decisive favorite to complete their parlay, just to add another more challenging leg to it, get a little bit more dollars back. Man, if you were one of the few people that decided to go in at minus 10,000 for Steph Curry to make a three-pointer, you have to just be wondering what to do with your life right now, because it got rough last night. 0 for 8, I believe, from the floor. I don't know if I know you and I didn't have that as a beat, but if you had that as part of your parlay card, Donovan, there were some people that did. I don't even know what you're doing this morning other than just pondering what you could be doing the rest of the way.
You have to be crying. That's the only acceptable answer.
Full sob. That's a sobbing ticket bet.
It's ridiculous because even at the end of the game, and they showed Steph when he was on the bench in like the last like 45 seconds, and he was joking around with the rest of the coaching staff, asking like, can I go in and get one more attempt, get one more shot? Because he knows, like he's very aware of everything, so he knows like that the streak is on the line, that all he needs is just one. But there were a couple looks at the very end of the game, and there was one with probably about like a minute or so left. He had it on the right wing, and he took a pump fake, reload three, and you just felt like, okay, this is the one. There's no pressure. You're up by 12. It's going to go in, and it just misses. And so you're like, okay, I guess it was just that kind of night. But minus 10,000, if you lose with minus 10,000 odds, I think you have to retire. I think at that point from betting, you just have to. Or either retire, sabbatical, maybe you take like the Michael Jordan retirement, you take 18 months off. Because losing like that has to kill you. That has to.
I mean, can you afford a sabbatical? I suppose you could probably afford a sabbatical if you're dropping minus 10,000 odds on a bet.
Yeah, it depends what you put. Now, if you put the mortgage on Steph Curry to hit 1-3 last night, you're waking up upset and homeless today, and so that's tough. So maybe you have to go back to work to get everything back, but that's tough. That's literally all I can say is that it's tough.
You are waking up homeless and upset. Please, for anybody that's hanging out with us, like minus 10,000, just don't do it. It's not worth it. I think the largest odds that I've ever placed on a bet was minus 700. And I feel like I kind of already knew the odds, or I knew the result at that point, even though technically I didn't. I think it might have been like one of those like offshore bets where I think it was for Biden's pick of Kamala Harris as vice president. Like it just got leaked, and it was still up on the offshore book that I was using at the time. And so I was like, all right, I'm just going to take whatever I have in the account because I know that this is the pick. But still, like, oof, rough go for sure. All right, we got the bad beat. Let's dive into something good, and that is our best bets of the night. We got plenty to choose from. Like I mentioned, I got 2 in Major League Baseball. Donovan's got 1 in MLB, and we each have a WNBA pick. Donovan's got 2, in fact. But we also have lots of picks from you guys tonight. So let's go ahead and kick things off with pick number 1 here on the show. What are we looking at for today, Joanne? It's our guy Cody Wells, Donovan, and he's going with a guy that makes my heart sing. Ji-Man Choi, Tampa Bay Rays first baseman and DH on the road against the New York Yankees. Over 0.5 RBI. He's 10 for 25 with 3 doubles and 4 home runs against Garrett Cole. He's got an 11-game hitting streak, a June slash line with a 940 OPS and 11 RBI in 9 games. Would rather take, he said his TB, which is total bases, but it's juiced. Also to homer is an interesting bet. I'm so glad that our guy Cody threw out Ji-Man Choi, because not only is he a great bet tonight, Donovan, and I'm fully on board with the over 0.5 RBI, he's also my daily dinger pick over at BetSided at plus 385. The numbers against Cole are unbelievable, but as Cody mentioned, this is a guy that has been locked in at the plate over the last 11 games. He's got 5 hits in his last 3 games. Love the opportunity for Ji-Man Choi to get the over tonight. I think it's a reasonable number, and I think it's a great play.
Yeah, listen, I'm siding with Cody. I just want to give Cody a shout out. Cody's the GOAT, right? Because Cody always comes in with good picks. Always has great explanation, great stats behind it. So shout out to you, Cody, for always participating. But yeah, I'm with it. I'm with this pick, especially I think a lot of us on the team have been looking at Garrett Cole today and kind of been fading him. And so any way that you can kind of pick up on those anytime that you can pick up on those kinds of trends, and especially today with Ji-Man Choi, it's a good deal. So I'm with it.
All right. Who do we have next after our guy Cody? Who else is on the list for today? Oh, Tanner McGrath, Colorado Rockies under. All right. So the total right now in that game in Coors Field between the Cleveland Guardians and the Colorado Rockies, Donovan, is set at 11. Now, I know that it's Coors Field and I know the weather's starting to heat up around the country, but I might as well just combine that because Tanner and I are both on the same page for this game today. I like the under as well. You have Shane Bieber on the mound. Really done a nice job over his last several starts at lowering that ERA, getting back to being a guy that can go deep into games. And yeah, he hasn't been the same dominant pitcher that we've seen in years past. But Colorado, yes, they've been a better offense at home, but whenever they face tough pitching, especially this year, haven't been able to live up to the moment. I just think this is too much predicated on the weather conditions at Coors Field and the ball likely flying out. But Bieber's done a better job of late of keeping the ball down, bringing his home run rate per 9 innings down. So I'm with Tanner here. I like the under. I think it's too heavily favored on the fact that it's just a game with the wind blowing out in Colorado and not reflective of the actual pitching matchup.
Yeah, I think Shane Bieber is going to have, himself a really nice day. And if you look at what Colorado's done kind of over the last week, they're 2-4 against the over in their last 6 games. And then if you throw in another one, they ended up pushing. I think once you get this number into the double digits, then you really have to start looking at the under. And so, that's exactly what Tanner's going with. So I like the under as well.
All right, so we're 2 for 2 with our agreement of our community picks today. Looks like we got one more on the board for tonight. Who do we have? At Fade Me to Glory, Jose Urquidy of the Houston Astros over 4.5 strikeouts at -120. He struck out 10 Texas Rangers back on May 22nd. That game was at home, but I still think 4.5 is reachable. And he also likes the Dodgers on the run line at +110. Dodgers at home against the struggling LA Angels, who, despite finally breaking through, getting out of that 14-game slide, Donovan, have lost 2 of their last 3 games since that point. So Dodgers run line, they've been one of the better run line teams all season long, even though they've been in a bit of a struggle themselves. But I think Urquidy makes plenty of sense, considering that, yeah, he can get it up there a little bit. At the same time, I think part of what is a concern is sometimes he's had a very up and down year, and I just don't know whether or not he's going to be able to provide the innings. I took, oh my goodness, I'm blanking out on his name, Christian Javier of Houston yesterday, because the Rangers over the last week have struck out the 4th most in Major League Baseball. But Javier also needed to get into the 6th inning to be able to hit that number over 5.5. And that's not something that he's done consistently throughout the course of the year. What do you think about Urquidy? Do you think he's in a position where he might be able to hit this prop, or do you see this going under tonight?
Yeah, so I'm not going to say too much about it because Urquidy, he is part of one of my best bets. But I will say that Fade Me to Glory, I will be taking his Twitter name to the bank. I will be fading him tonight.
Okay.
I'm not too much of a fan of Urquidy against the Rangers today, and so I'll get more of that on my best bets later. But yeah, I'm not. It's a little. This line is a little suspect to me.
All right, so we got some really good bets coming in from the community. Well, at least 2 of them. It sounds like you're in disagreement with our guy on the final one for today. But let's dive right in. Our best bets of the night. I got 2 in Major League Baseball. You have 1 in Major League Baseball. I already talked about it. One of them between the Guardians and the Rockies. I do like the under at 11, particularly because I just trust Shane Bieber. As I mentioned before, he's done a much better job as of late after a really rough start to the year. One of the better pitchers on the board today, and against a Rockies team, like you said, has gone 2-4 in their last 6 games to the under, despite the fact that they are playing in Coors Field tonight. Bieber comes in, gotten his strikeout rate towards 9.5, ERA still under 3. I think he's set up for a lot of success, despite the fact that Antonio Senzatella for Colorado has had a really, really rough year. He has a ERA right now of 4.83, but an expected ERA nearly 2 runs higher. I just don't think Cleveland's going to beat them by themselves to be able to hit the over. So I like the under of 11 in that game. And then one other one that I have for tonight on the slate for Major League Baseball. My favorite player prop of the night is Kyle Hendricks, over 2.5 strikeouts at -140. against the San Diego Padres. Now, Donovan, it's at Wrigley Field and the wind is blowing out 14 miles per hour to left field. Hendricks has given up a ton of home runs. It doesn't bode well, except the Cubs need him to stick around and give them some innings because their bullpen and their starting rotation has been torched lately. So for all we know, Hendricks could give up 3-4 bombs tonight, but I still anticipate him going several innings in this game. He's also had a much better strikeout rate over his career at Wrigley Field compared to on the road. I think it sets up well for him because of the longevity in this game and the fact that he's hit this number in 5 games and 5 starts this year, that Hendricks can get over a fairly measly number of just 2.5. So those are my 2 MLB bets for the day. Hendricks over 2.5 strikeouts at -140 against San Diego, and then the under for Colorado and for I just blanked out, Colorado and Cleveland. Any thoughts on either of those 2 matchups?
No, I think, well, we talked earlier about the under in the Colorado game, so I really like that play as well. And then tonight, once we, you talk about this measly line, these short lines are really, really tough because sometimes like you think, oh, it's 2.5 is kind of like a simple line to get. And this one's a little bit juiced up, but I'm with you. I think even with the wind blowing, Kyle Hendricks should be able to go in and get the job done against San Diego. So I like both of the picks today.
Very good. I know that you're on a baseball pick as well. You teased it a couple minutes ago. Go ahead and reveal where you're going with either the Astros and Rangers, or maybe perhaps on Jose Urquidy and his pitching prop tonight.
Yeah. So surprise, I'm going against Jose Urquidy today. And, you mentioned earlier the fact that he gets into these up and down stretches. And right now he's kind of in one of those down stretches. He's only cleared this line in 5 of his last 7 starts. He's kind of been back and forth. But one of the things that has been consistent for him has been his mistakes. He's given up a home run in every start this season except for 2. And he tends to give them up in bunches. And so when you're playing a team like Texas, who's actually top 5 in baseball in home runs per game, there's a lot of potential for his outing to be really, really short today. And so if I'm looking at Urquidy, who doesn't normally hit this line, and then a potential for a short outing, I don't really like taking the over. So I think that the under here is the play to go, and that Texas will be able to take advantage of a lot of the mistakes that he normally has.
So the thing about Urquidy is that it's not a particularly high strikeout rate this year. Like, it's only 17%. Like, that's not going to do it, especially if you're going to put yourself in a really good position. And again, I know that he struck out the Rangers 10 times back on May 22nd, but I mean, look at the numbers consistently over the course of this year. 3 strikeouts in that game against Seattle. He had 6 against the Royals. That's one of the worst and most anemic offenses in the league. 4 against Seattle, then 1 against Boston, 3 against Minnesota, 3 against Detroit. Detroit's one of the worst offenses in the league as well. He just hasn't hit that number consistently enough. And you're right, the mistakes have been there, and he's just not missing a lot of bats. So yes, the Rangers have struck out a ton. And I understand the rationale to target teams that have struck out quite a bit, but this might be tough sledding for Urquidy tonight. I think you're right.
Yeah. So I think Texas, Texas's offense might be able to wake up a little bit, especially with the long ball. So I'll take the under here.
All right, let's get to our other league that we're taking our best bets from tonight. And I'm sorry, before we do that, I wanted to address Beers and Bowties, who's weighing in. Also, shout out to Beers and Bowties, who's been a loyal watcher of our program. He said, I've been watching the College World Series, and since it's almost a stepping stone for the next level, shouldn't they play with wooden bats? It seems like they are cheating themselves. It's a really interesting question, and I know there's a lot of these different leagues for college players to get experience with wooden bats. The Cape Cod League is a historic one. I used to broadcast games for a Summer Plains League, which is based out of like North Carolina, South Carolina. I was working for the Fayetteville Swamp Dogs at the time. God, it was 1,000 years ago at this point, but that was also a wood bat league as well. I don't know. It's a tough one for me to answer, Donovan, because I think part of the appeal in the college game is that you are seeing a little bit more runs. Fans want runs. They want the ball put in play a little bit more. And especially as velocity is continuing to go up, and we've noticed trend in baseball of pitchers being far more dominant than hitters, I actually don't mind it. I think it's a nice little novelty. It's like in college, you get 20-minute basketball. And at the same time, you get the 12-minute quarters in the NBA. So maybe it's a little bit of a difference between the collegiate level and the professional level. So I don't mind the aluminum bats there. What about for you?
I 100% mind it. I think they should be playing with wooden bats. There's like nothing else really is different. And you talked about the two halves in college basketball. That's stupid. That no other level of basketball does that, right? Like the women's college basketball, they play 4 quarters. There's no reason why men's college basketball should be playing 2 halves. That's stupid on their part. If you get to, and then you get to like to the baseball side, one just aesthetically, the sound of the crack of a wooden bat is a million times better than the clink of a metal bat. So that's one. And two, if you're talking about just like preparation for the next level, yeah, you should have to do that, because once you get drafted and you start going into the ranks of the minor leagues, you have to make that. Maybe some guys might be able to make that adjustment even faster, and now you start getting guys into the majors. Like, it's not going to make a huge difference, but you might be able to make that transition over a little bit easier if you start making them play with wooden bats. And once you go to the other leagues, you're going to play like to the Cape Cod League and the Summer Plains League and stuff like that. You're playing with wooden bats. Again, there's no reason why, if you are the quote unquote developmental league for the majors, that you should be having something this different in terms of like hitting, So I would go with wooden bats.
So all those points are very valid. I'll end it on this. I still want, Cody brings up a really good point. He says, isn't it about the cost for broken bats? Could absolutely be the case. And I think depending on the program, many of them that could afford the wooden bats for their players, but maybe they choose not to try to find some sort of cost saving can. I wouldn't mind it, but again, it's already that much more difficult to hit as a professional hitter. You have some sort of an advantage with the aluminum bats, and then part of your minor league adjustment, where we're not going to see most of these guys play at the big league level. And I want a more aesthetically pleasing college game, and so you're going to get that more often with the aluminum bats. But yes, should it be helping them to prepare? Yes, I cannot argue with the dink of an aluminum bat versus the crack of a wooden bat. There's no question it sounds better. But again, long-term over 9 innings, I want to see a better offensive product on the field. By the way, Beers and Buddha says that he's 30 minutes away from the Fayetteville Swamp Dogs. Let's go. Love to see it. It was a great summer. God, it was all the way back in summer of 2008, I believe, calling games out in Fayetteville. So we're talking about 14 years, Donnavan, where I was once a play-by-play broadcaster and came to the realization that I should on sports betting instead. So I think it goes to show you where my priorities ended up going as a result of my career.
Yeah, 100%.
By the way, speaking of those priorities, let's get back into our best bets before we dive into an early look, a way too early look at the college football playoff for this year. Donnavan and I have our 4 teams that we believe will be there at the end. That's coming up in a few minutes from now. But you and I, we both love covering and love betting on the WNBA. Over to BetSided, you can find some of our plays for tonight as well. There's 2 games on the slate for today. I know you have plays on. Kick things off to you, and then I'll tag it on the other side with my favorite WNBA bet for tonight. So who do you like?
Yeah, so my first bet, I'm going to go with my, I guess, unofficial team at this point, the Minnesota Lynx.
I don't know if you're official team right now. They're having a rough go.
No, listen, it's very tough, and they are one of the worst teams in the league. But I don't know why. I just can't stay away from betting on them. But the +8 against the Storm tonight, I think we're getting a little bit of value. The Storm they're -8, obviously. They're 2-4 this year as 5-point favorites or more. You've seen plenty of times that Seattle just hasn't been able to create a lot of separation, even against some of the worst teams in the league. And Minnesota can do a couple things in terms of like giving themselves an advantage to keep this game close. They can get to the line, they can get to the line, and then they can offensive rebound, fairly well. So I think if Minnesota is able to do kind of what they normally do and kind of succeed where they can, then everything is going to be okay, and they won't get blown out. Now it is going to be kind of hard to keep the game that close with Seattle being, one of the elite defenses in the WNBA. They're second in defensive rating. But on the other side, they're ninth in pace. And so if you're talking about, Sue Bird being able to control the game and how this game is going to go, I don't know if a blowout, if a wide open, fast break kind of game is going to break out. And so I think that Minnesota, if they actually, succumb to what Seattle does, we'll be able to keep it a little bit closer if the Storm are able to keep the pace. So that's my first one. And then my second pick, I'm going to go with the under in the Mercury and Mystics game. Now, this line it's at 161.5. I got it at 164 earlier.
You sharp, you.
Come on now. I got it at 164.5. It's down 3 points, but I still really, really like it. These two teams, they played 2 days ago, and it was an overtime thriller. Phoenix ended up winning 99-90, but this is kind of going to be like a playoff series kind of feel because they're playing extremely close together. Washington still has the third best defensive rating in the league. They play at the slowest pace in the Washington will be able to make the adjustments. And now that you've seen them literally 2 days ago, you're going to come back in here, maybe not get an overtime that added an extra 19 points to the game. And so on top of that, Phoenix's offense it's not fantastic, right? Like they've won 3 straight, but still on the season, their offense is kind of middle of the pack. So unless they really, really get off to a fast start, I don't see the over in this one hitting. What do you think?
So that game is also fascinating. And if you go and you read our article over at BetSided, you'll notice that my pick on the game is on 3. And initially they were at 8. They're now at 8.5, and that concerns me a little bit because they've played really good basketball. They've won 3 of their last 5 games. Their only 2 losses came by, I think, 4 points to the Sun, 3 Chicago. Like, they started terribly and have started to figure things out. But the fact that the line remains that big, it can't just only be because Elena Delle Donne is coming back. It's a part of it because she's probable and is expected to play, but this is still a Phoenix team that I think is being overlooked. So unless a bunch of players are sitting, I feel like I'm walking into a trap. I do like the Mercury to cover yet again. But you're right. I think for that type of situation, you want to be able to be on the under. And I'm glad that you, at that earlier price at -164, it's a really, really good number to have it at because it is going to be more of a defensive-minded game, knowing that last one went into overtime. Both teams are starting to figure it out. Both teams are going to be making adjustments. But my favorite WNBA pick of the night is against your Minnesota Lynx. I'm actually not taking the Storm, even though I think they can cover, and focus on the under instead. You brought up a few points that I thought were really, really, really helpful in particular in pace. So the Storm play very slow. They rank 8th in pace. They're also 8th in points per 100 possessions. They're 2nd in the league in opponent points per 100 possessions and opponent points per play. The Atlanta Dream are the number in the WNBA in overall defense, but Seattle's number 2. And they've started to be a much more dynamic team defensively. And they've been kind of maddening, honestly, to bet on because, like you said, in games that they should be blowing out their opponents, they have failed to keep their foot on the gas pedal. And so that's part of the reason that I kind of wanted to stay away. The Lynx are missing a ton of players tonight. Sylvia Fowles is out. Kayla McBride is out. Multiple players are not available, and they can't score. So factoring in Seattle's ability on defense, along with the Lynx not being able to in the basket, just tells me that under 158 is probably the way to go here. And I think this total has actually dropped a little bit, 157 over at WinBet as well. So I still like the under in this game just because I just don't know where offense for Minnesota from tonight.
Yeah, I think once you start looking at Seattle, and I'm pulling up the numbers right now, but so here's the thing about Seattle is that they especially over like the last like 4 years, like they understand who they are, and so like you're gonna get the ball through into Breonna Stewart. You're gonna have to play this very strong defensive minded type of basketball, and so I think even though the Minnesota is like good on the offensive glass and you can try to get some second chance points and that might inflate a couple things, their offense still isn't. It's still not fantastic, right? I picked the Lynx +8 more because I don't think that Seattle is a blowout team, right? But if you're talking about the under in this game, I really do like it. And let me actually go to what they are, against the over and the under. And yeah, my bad. I'm pulling this up right now, but I think that they should be able to keep this game fairly close. Seattle is 7-6 this year against the over, right? So it's kind of like a toss up once you get there. And if you throw into the equation a bad offensive team like Minnesota, the under is a really good play here.
Yeah, I think that's the way to go. So we have both plays and totals for both of the WNBA games today. Let's review them for our best bets of the day. And again, coming up in about a minute, early look at the college football playoff from a betting perspective. Excited to dive in with Donnavan on that. But Donnavan's picks for today, he's going with the under 4.5 for Astros starter Jose Urquidy against the Texas Rangers. The Minnesota Lynx, big underdogs at home against the Seattle Storm, +8. And then under 161.5, even though he got it at 164.5 earlier today, between the Phoenix Mercury and the Washington Mystics. As for my best bets of the night, I like the under in Coors Field between the Guardians and Shane Bieber on the mound against the Colorado Rockies. Also like the over for Kyle Hendricks, 2.5 strikeouts, just a puny number on the board. Kyle Hendricks at 2.5. And then under 158 between the Seattle Storm and the Minnesota Lynx, 2 unders on the board for the WNBA. In fact, 4 out of our 6 plays unders tonight. So we're chasing after the smart money, we hope, Donnavan, to the more exciting action on our television sets. But with that being said, let's move on in the program, dive into some at sea for another several months. But it's never too early to start talking about the college football season. You and I both went through the teams that we believe will end up being in the college football playoff, the final 4 teams on the board. We used a combination of plays that we like, some of their underlying odds over at WinBet as well. So let's go ahead and reveal them to all that are watching today. At the end of the season, here on June 14th, Tuesday, I ask you who will be the 4 teams in the college football playoff. Give it to me.
All right. So I feel kind of bad because I don't have a set 4, but here's my top 3 because I think that these 3 teams are a tier above everybody. Obviously, we're going to go Alabama. Ohio State's going to be in there. I think Georgia gets in there. And then for my 4th one, it is a mix, and these are the 3 teams that I have kind of tied in my head. This is going to be Clemson, Texas, and UCLA. And those are my 4. Now I think that the other 3 are kind of self-explanatory, and we can go into that in a bit. Clemson, I am very, very curious about what their offense is going to look like this year. That was the main thing that was holding them back last year. UCLA, I think that the Pac-12 has 2 competitors for them. It's gonna be obviously Utah and that physical style of football, and then is Lincoln Riley actually going to be able to come in within an offseason and completely turn around everything that USC is doing, and challenge UCLA, or can Chip Kelly kind of take everything that they did last year, win a couple more of those big games, and take them to be a Power 5 champion? And then the only other reason why I'm picking Texas is because they do have a chance, even though that they were 5-7 last year, and this is probably me drinking a whole bunch of the offseason Kool-Aid, but they have a chance to win the Big 12, thus putting them as a Power 5 champion. I think that, and I also think that their non-conference game compared to Oklahoma, they're going to be the top 2 teams in the Big 12. Oklahoma's non-conference game is against Nebraska. Texas's non-conference game is against Alabama. And so even if the Longhorns lose that game, if they handle business, which is a very, very big if for them, but if they handle business for the rest of the season, their non-conference loss is going to look much better than what Oklahoma does. And so that's why I would put them in that mix. I would probably have them third in that, group of three to get the fourth spot, but I think that they do have a chance to get there. I know.
Yeah. I don't know if I can get behind it yet. I mean, UCLA, like, this is a tougher Pac-12 than we're accustomed to seeing. Like, it's not just going to be Oregon trying to just sort of waltz. USC is going to be a legitimate contender with the talent that they're bringing in. And again, it doesn't really matter if they're not able to stop defensively, because we saw Oklahoma all those years in the Big 12 just roll right on through the conference and into the college football playoff. Like, we're not talking about winning the whole damn thing. We're talking about just getting there. And there's certainly an argument to be made that with Lincoln Riley now 12, playing against competition that is probably easier than what he faced in the Big 12. It's debatable, but I mean, Oregon's going through a bit of a transition. You like UCLA, but there's still some concerns there. Utah's a good team that I don't think we're maybe enough consideration to. But of all those three, if you had to choose one to go with Ohio State, Alabama, and Georgia, who's it going to be? You got to pick one.
If I was to pick one of the out of Clemson, Texas, and UCLA,
to round out that four,
I would pick Clemson. I would pick Clemson because I think that their defense is fantastic, and if Dabo can figure out some way to get the offense going, then they would be okay. I think that the ACC schedule might favor them a little bit. Like even like they still had a chance, to do some really, really good things last year, even though that the offense wasn't up to par. They were still in a lot of games, and that was kind of the the thing that was holding them back. But I would go with Clemson, and so it sucks because it's kind of like a very chalk play. But those are the four I would be most confident in.
All right, so perfect. Also, our guy Reed Wallach checking in, one of our other college football insiders and experts over at BetSided. Saw a tricky week 1, but boy, are Utes live for the college football playoff. Also mentions that they are plus 400. Bring out the hammer and nails, fellas. Do you think we're sleeping on Utah a little bit? I know that I like USC, and if you were considering a team, you like UCLA, but they are bringing back a lot of guys, and I just know that it's a tougher conference with Riley coming in. Whether or not that could be a decisive factor, they're going to stay in every game. Like, the defense is legit, and they've been a really good defense for the last handful of years. But maybe we are sleeping on. Maybe this is a team that, especially getting a taste of playing in that Rose Bowl last year, that we need to be giving them a little bit more love.
Maybe, and I will say that, like, the consistency of Utah is something that we probably should give a little bit more credit for. Like, I'm going for UCLA, who's had a little bit of ups and downs, and Oregon's going through some things themselves. USC obviously has Lincoln Riley and Caleb Williams coming over, so their continuity might be the key that brings them through this conference. So maybe we are, but I'd like the upside on probably. I like the upside for USC the most in the conference, but I think UCLA kind of has the best balance of both.
If you're looking for college football futures for Utah this year over at WinBet, they are 75-1 to win the college football playoff. As far as winning the Pac-12, not sure if those odds have been released as of yet. I know that Reed had them at plus 400, which looks like another real solid value there. All right, so we got your picks. Like you said, you didn't need to necessarily mention the other three between Alabama, Ohio State, and Georgia. They kind of just sort of deserve their rightful place. Tanner checks in, by the way, and says there's going to be 2 SEC teams in the college football playoff. Not so fast, my friend. I do not have 2 SEC teams on my list, but to that point, two SEC teams, Donovan, have been there the last several years. But again, I still feel like this is the conference that cannibalizes each other the most. And I also have a little bit of doubts that Georgia can come back and do it again. They're still going to be an electric team, and the defense is always going to show up. But Georgia had a few breaks go their way a little bit later on in the season when they kind of let their guard down. And sometimes, especially when a team has finally tasted that first taste of victory, it's hard for them to keep that same level of competition the following year. Do you have any concerns about Georgia getting back into the college football playoff? I know they're on your list, but any concerns that they may fail a little bit?
Maybe a little bit, just because like you don't have all the guys from that amazing defense last year. Listen, for my Eagles have two of those Bulldogs. They have N'Kobe Dean, and they have Jordan Davis, and so you have a lot of guys that provided some versatility on their defense and that allowed them to do a lot. But I think that Kirby Smart is one of the elite coaches in the game. I think that Georgia has the talent. I mean, listen, they were able to win a national championship with a backup quarterback. Say what you want about what the ceiling of Stetson Bennett was. He was a backup quarterback, and they're able to ride him to a national championship. So they clearly know how to adjust on the fly, and I think that in the SEC, in a conference that that competitive, they will certainly still be a very, very big factor.
All right, so we got the factor in for Georgia. Joanne, of course, Team Kirby Smart forever and always. All right, well then I'll go ahead and make my picks quick, because my picks do not include the Georgia Bulldogs in the mix for today. Donovan, you and I are in agreement. Alabama, Ohio State, also on my list as well. I think the talent discrepancy between every other team, between the two of them, stands at the top. I do like USC to be able to get in. Just bringing in Drake London, bringing in Caleb Williams to follow Lincoln Riley, so there's full continuity in that offense. They're going to score like 40, 50 points a game, and it's not going to be difficult at all. Like, Lincoln Riley was brought to Southern California to score a ton of points and to make USC football exciting again. And I think he's more than capable of being able to get the job done, even in his first year, simply because of the talent around him. And then I'll go back to Clemson to be able to figure some things out. For as much talent, and you guys are going to make fun of me because I know how to pronounce his name, and yet I still can't figure out how to pronounce Clemson's quarterback's name. DJ. Go ahead and say it for me, just because I don't want to screw it up.
Uyangale.
DJ Uyangale. I mean, everything that could have gone wrong went wrong for him a season ago, but Clemson is clearly the class of the ACC. I suppose Miami and maybe North Carolina put up a bit of a fight, but they're going through some quarterback changes as well. They'll run away with the conference. They'll pad their stats a little bit. There's really no other competition for them. And the other thing that all these guys have in common, Donovan, is CJ Stroud, Bryce Young, Caleb Williams, and DJ, 4 of the top 5 odds to win the Heisman. So I'm banking on their top players living up to their expectations. The only guy that's in the mix that I didn't mention is Bijan Robinson. And it's hard enough to be a running back that carries the entire load for your team. But I'm talking at the most important position. Those are the guys that are set by odds makers at the top. So I'm buying in on their futures.
Okay, listen, I like that. I think last year I was kind of in on DJ winning the Heisman a little bit early, and he ended up flopping, and his season didn't go well. I will say, just because I want to sneak in this talk, if we're talking about Bijan he's special, and so I think you saw, especially early on in that Texas season, they were giving him the ball a million times a game and just saying, please take us there. And if you're gonna go with either Hudson Card or Quinn Ears at quarterback, you're gonna have a lot of inexperience there. So if you're talking about maybe a Heisman play, I think Bijan is a pretty good dark horse to go. But in terms of Lincoln Riley being able to turn USC around, I still have some questions, but I don't think that it's out of the question to think that he'll do that. And then for Clemson, they are extremely consistent, and you can't really argue with a lot of the results that Dabo Swinney has produced over the years. So it's a very solid 4 on your part.
Yeah, not a fan of Dabo, the human being. Coach, it's hard to argue with a lot of those results. So I'll just sort of begrudgingly say that I expect Clemson to be there. So those are our way too early looks at the college football playoff. Donovan going with Ohio State, Alabama, Georgia, and some sort of combination between Clemson, Texas, and UCLA. I'm going with Alabama, Ohio State, USC, and Clemson. And I'm sure both of our picks somehow will all be right. And nobody will remember this several months from now when the official rankings come out and we know who's 1 through 4. And that's the way it works on the internet. So I'm cool with it.
That's perfect. That works for me.
Good. All right. Deep breath. Don't have to worry about it. Let's dive in. Game of the night in Major League Baseball. Fun matchup between the Milwaukee Brewers and the New York Mets. 2 of the best teams in the National League this year. You have the Brewers coming in to Citi Field at 34-28. Been a bit of a rough stretch for Milwaukee. At one point, had lost 8 games in a row, but starting to right the ship again after St. Louis took first place in the NL Central. Meanwhile, the Mets becoming the second team to 40 wins this year, trailing only the New York Yankees for the best records in Major League Baseball. Taking a look at the odds for tonight, Donovan, it is a favorite for the New York Mets. They are minus 145 currently on the board at WynnBET Sportsbook. Brewers come in on the money line at plus 135. If you are looking to go run line tonight, you can take the Mets at minus 1.5 at plus 127 odds. For the Brewers, it's plus 1.5 at minus 155 and a total of 8. The matchup on the mound is also intriguing because Adrian Hauser goes for Milwaukee. Good ERA of 3.92, but has not gotten a lot of run support. He's 3-6. Chris Bassett, who was brought in from Oakland, goes for the New York Mets today. ERA of 4.35, but has also been a little bit unlucky this year. So do you trust Bassett to finally get some positive regression? Maybe the same can be said for Hauser, who hasn't gotten enough run support. Are you looking to the total? Are you looking to the side? What's your best bet for this game?
So my best bet is the over in this game. I like over 8 runs. If I had to go with the second one, I would take the Mets on the run line in this game. And so I might even double up and have a slight little parlay. I like the over as my main best bet, just because neither of these pitchers impress me, and I think that Milwaukee, especially after getting back on track against the Nationals in their last game, are finally going to be able to maybe get a couple hits off of Bassett. And the same goes with the Mets. Bassett in his last five starts, he's given up 6.2 runs per game and 4 hits per contest. Now those numbers, they're skewed a little bit. They actually brought down a little bit more because he had a really good outing against the Phillies, but they're not fantastic numbers. And then if you go to the other side, in Hauser, he's given up 5 homers in his last 3 games, 14 runs, 21 hits in that same span. So I think that both pitchers have been struggling a little bit. You have a powerful offense like the Mets, and so I can see the Mets sporting a really good portion of this total, and maybe Milwaukee sprinkling on a couple runs, but I like over 8 runs tonight.
Yeah, I think it's a reasonable play if you're looking at the slate of pitchers on the board based off of wins above replacement. Hauser ranks 19th on the slate. Bassett ranks 21st. So neither of these pitchers have been all that impressive this year. But I will say this about Bassett, and part of the reason that I like the Mets on the money line, I don't know if I feel great about taking them on the run line, especially as of late with their offense being a bit up and down and them striking out a lot. But Bassett's ERA is 4.35. His expected ERA over at Fangraphs is almost a full run below that at 3.53. He's got one of the better strikeouts per 9 on the slate at just under 10. His walk rate is a little bit high for what we're accustomed to. And honestly, his biggest issue right now is giving up too many home runs. He's averaging 1.45 home runs per 9 innings. That's one of the higher totals on the slate today. Bassett hasn't really been that guy in the past. And I think a few of those mechanical changes, you mentioned that rough start that he had. If you go back and take a look at really how he's done over the course of the year, Bassett's not known for being that guy that's going to just give up a ton of home run balls. So it was just kind of out of place for him. But we're talking about since the middle of May, he had given up 4 home runs up until May 19th. Since then, he's given up 7 home runs in his last 5 starts. So I think at some point he's going to get that mechanical issues fixed, because that number is just way, way too high compared to what we've seen from him in the past. So I think Bassett gets it going against the Brewers team that's been very up and down. I'm not buying into the fact that they've all of a sudden put some things together against the Nationals team that's one of the worst in baseball. And it turns out, Donovan, that the community is in agreement. They are going with the Mets at -150 tonight. So don't have to make a second bet to add to my slip tonight. The Mets -150 over the Brewers. Makes sense, favorite at home gets the support of the community, the public play in full form. So New York Mets -150 tonight is the community bet. And that is our show. Appreciate all you guys hanging out with us. Couple quick announcements before we get out of here. The first is, if you have not had a chance to watch the vet versus the rookie between Donovan and Ian, make sure you guys check that out. Also, Ian did a great job with Green on the Greens. You can find that on our BetSided YouTube channel. And while you're searching for that and going over all the golf plays that you need to know, make sure you guys go to Twitter, find us at BetSided, and sign up for our US Open giveaway for $1,000. All the details are right there at the top of our Twitter page. Make sure you guys check it out. It is the easiest way you can possibly enter to try and compete for $1,000 for the US Open. Tomorrow, I will be back on the show with our guy, Peter Dewey. We will talk some NBA, go into Major League Baseball as well. Anything else on the board is also fair game. So for my guy, Donnavan Smoot, I'm Ben Heisler. Shout out to Joanne Stoner, our producer and director. We will talk to you again tomorrow on the Daily Bet Slip. Until then, may all of your best bets hit. We'll see you again tomorrow. So long, everybody.